I'll switch over to.
Yeah, I'll switch over. Sweet. I'll see if the technology works, but everything's cooler when you're talking about spaceships with pictures. So I'm Sirisha Bandla. I work at Virgin Galactic in the DC operations, so I mostly do policy and regulatory work. But I also work on manifesting spaceship with science and technology payloads. So I'm going to focus on spaceship as a platform for commercial science and research in my talk. So I wanted to start out with this image first. This was in 2004 when SpaceShipOne successfully completed its second flight to space and won the Ansari X Prize. It was really a turning point in the commercial space industry, not only for Virgin, because that was when Virgin Galactic was created, but in the following years, we really saw momentum for the private space industry with SpaceX and Blue and other companies that joined the industry and started offering their services in the marketplace. One theme that we always see, and it's always brought out when we're talking about the industry, is that these companies are founded by billionaires and funded by billionaires. Ours, Richard Branson, is the founder of Virgin Group, and there's a lot of familiar faces on here and a lot of familiar companies. But this isn't really new. One of the other things I wanted to point out was that there's a lot of billionaires for science as well. A lot of wealthy individuals use their funds to fund research and technology development for causes that are close to their heart, or something that's personally affected them. We've seen it for research for finding a cure for a disease or eradicating a disease, or for conservation efforts. So one of the things I'm looking forward to in these next 2 days is how do we meld the billionaires for space and the billionaires for science, and worked for really a privatization of space science. For Virgin, research is an important part of our mission, and we hope to also further that area as well. And the platform we hope to use that for, to do that with, should I say, is SpaceShipTwo. How's that for a transition? So SpaceShipTwo is a Virgin Galactic suborbital spacecraft. It is actually made up of 2 separate vehicles, the whole platform. We have White Knight 2, which is a aircraft and the carrier aircraft for SpaceShipTwo. SpaceShipTwo is the space plane that will go into suborbital space. It'll carry will carry 2 people and up to 2 pilots and up to 6 passengers to suborbital space, about 80 to 100 kilometers. It can also take an equivalent amount of research and technology payloads. So just to really quickly go through what this would look like on a typical day. So the pair would start out in a mated configuration, as you see here, with White Knight carrying SpaceShipTwo. We take off from a runway like a normal aircraft. White Knight would take about 40 minutes to get up to about 50,000 feet, and that's when it would release SpaceShipTwo. And this is SpaceShipTwo tail number 2, which we refer to, which is called Unity. So it'll release Unity, and Unity will then fire its rocket motor for about 60 seconds until it reaches about 80 to 100 kilometers and coast to apogee. And at apogee, it will enter its what we call the feather configuration. It basically will reorient the spacecraft to be in the right orientation for reentry. And this was actually taken from a recent glide flight where we tested the feather. So back around 50,000 feet, SpaceShipTwo will be back in its normal configuration and glide back to the runway and the spaceport from which it took off. So as I mentioned, we take about 6 passengers to space for space tourism, but we can also take out those seats and put cargo. So we are working with PIs and researchers to fly microgravity science payloads and technology development payloads. Those payloads will get about 3 to 4 minutes of microgravity. And to the very Virgin portion of this, we really value customer experience, and that's something Branson has really instilled in all of his companies. So we don't have too many requirements. If you can fit through the elliptical hatch, you can attach to our rack, you're okay with the power we provide and it's not carrying anything super dangerous, most likely we'll be able to fly it. And I'm not going to go into all of these technical details. You can get all of this information on a payload user's guide that we have. But I did want to point out the cabin configuration. So we take out 5 seats and put in racks for payloads, but we keep 1 seat and we'll always fly a payload specialist with every flight. And we're really excited about that because that means going forward, we can actually have researchers fly their payloads. And I think that's a very interesting concept. And I'm really excited to see what the industry can do with that. So right now we're in our test flight phase for Spaceship Unity. And I just wanted to show a quick video about our test flight. Yeah, Pony PC. There we go. Our lead test pilot says it much better than I can, so I'll let him take it away.
One of my earliest memories is actually from following the space program. I was PhD at the time, and one magazine we got was National Geographic. And in February of '72, there was an article on Apollo 15, and I read it, and right in there with it was an article on the early days of hang gliding. And that just intrigued me because here were these high school students building wings out of bamboo and plastic and actually flying. And that was what I wanted to do.
My name is Mark Smithy, call sign Forger, and I'm the lead test pilot. I bring to the table a few decades of flight test experience. We're intimately involved with engineers, helping with the design where it makes sense, and doing all the planning to come up with smart flight test programs.
Test flight day started early. We like to be airborne right around sunrise. So we start at 5 and we're looking to be airborne 2 hours after that.
So, busy flight car. The goal of any first flight is simply to get it on the ground safely. But we're also trying to get some serious test flying done. We have a lot of test flights. And it starts with what we call an approach to stall, which is to slow down well below our planned landing speed and investigate how the wing flies at high angles of attack. It is a first flight of a new vehicle, but it's a lot like the previous vehicle, which was very comfortable flying.
Once we arm for release, we treat it as if the spaceship could be dropped at any time. So I'm holding the controls in for the release, just to ensure clean separation the moment we get down to the count of 0. We're working on a program that can have a very definite impact 200 years from now. And it's really cool to be able to be a part of such a program.
So with all respect to Forger, it's not just cool, it's friggin' awesome. So that's basically my presentation. I'm really excited. Virgin is really interested in creating a platform that provides frequent access to space, which is something that I don't think has really happened before. So I'm really interested in seeing what we talked about previously, of seeing commercial partner with the science industry and take use of these kind of platforms. And the last image I wanted to leave you guys with was, this is the shot from Spaceship One as we start commercial ops. a lot of researchers, participants, people will be able to have this view and be able to see Earth from space. And I'm really hoping that that new perspective that they gain will stay with them as they move forward and use it as a force for good in their lives. So happy to take questions. Yep.
I'm Dave Mosher from Business Insider. Do you have any science payloads booked, and how far out do they go? Like, and who are your customers?
Yeah, so right now we're mainly working with NASA and the Flight Opportunities Program. So we do have a couple flights coming up with NASA, and they're full manifested, just NASA payloads. So it's different universities that have proposed to NASA, to the Flight Opportunities Program, and have gotten that funding for the flight, but it is a NASA flight. So those will be coming up as soon as we're ready.
And can you characterize any of those experimental payloads?
Yeah, so we've kind of redone the manifest a little bit after our accident. So they're still going to above 80 kilometers. It'll be a smaller manifest than we had announced before, but some of the researchers like University of Florida, University of Central Florida, Johns Hopkins, some of those same payloads will be on our first research flight. Did I answer?
I was just curious what they're trying to study.
Oh, okay. So University of Florida, they're doing, it's a very wide range. All of these payloads are technology development payloads because they are funded out of STMD. University of Florida is looking at ways to look at the gene expressions of Arabidopsis plants in the stresses of microgravity in the new environment. We have a payload doing collisions of particles in dust to see how that goes in microgravity. So it's a pretty wide range. There isn't one area that I've seen that has proposed more than another. But yeah, it's very interesting. We're really excited to see the results of all this. We can keep going this way.
Are you able to quote a price per pound? And do you have any to suborbital? And do you have any plans to go orbital in the future?
So I can't quote publicly. We have a system where the researcher basically lays out what they want to do, and we're able to look at what that's going to need on our end and release a price. So we do it, as it comes. So I can't do it publicly. But for orbit, we actually have a sister company, Virgin Orbit, that's doing small dedicated launch for small satellites, and they actually have a contract with NASA for a venture class launch service, and they're launching CubeSats for SMD as one of their early flights. So it's a little bit confusing. Virgin Orbit, Virgin Galactic, separate companies, but sister companies under the same umbrella. So we do have an orbit side, but it's not with Spaceship.
Thank you very much. And it's a beautiful aircraft. I live in Los Angeles. My name is Casey Hanman. And I'm wondering, given what we know now about the length of time it took Bhutan's company to bring SpaceShipOne from a concept to flight into space, and for Orbit to do the same process, but obviously for a very different customer base, what Virgin can teach the rest of the industry now about what it's discovered about managing programmatic risk and timelines and stuff, so that other people don't have to go through the same pain of learning how these things function in the commercial space.
It's always going to take longer than you think. Yeah, it's very interesting. That's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people have noticed our leadership. A lot of people within the company have stopped giving dates. That's really harmed industry and in terms of the public perception of our industry by saying we're going to be flying in 2 years when we're not through the test flight. We don't know what we don't know. So it's very hard to predict that. So I think not giving dates is a good first step. But it's tough. With test flight, it's very incremental. You do a flight, you may have checked all the boxes, you may have seen the data you want. If not, you got to do the flight again. So I think it's just very hard to predict a timeline for a new vehicle. So I think you just really need to manage public expectations and even your customers' expectations when you're moving forward with a program like that. So. Okay, Olivia, and then I'll go to the side of the room. I know I've been ignoring, sorry.
Thanks, Sirisha. I'm just curious, can you speak at all to the difference in the science that you can do, or the science that's enabled by SpaceShipTwo versus sounding rockets and balloons, high altitude balloons and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And is Virgin ultimately going to be able to offer a lower price point in Camp Fox 6?
Yeah, for the price point, hopefully yes. It's the normal process. We start with a very high price. The more frequent we fly, hopefully we'll have another spaceship tail number coming up. We'll be able to lower the price as we have more flights. So that is something we are hoping to do. For the difference between spaceship, so spaceship goes a lot higher than balloons. Sounding rockets go higher than spaceship. But there's differences in the ride. So in terms of altitude, different microgravity periods. In terms of the ride, sounding rockets, your payload will have to endure a lot more G-forces, so you'll have to build it to be able to endure those forces. Spaceship and balloons are a much smoother ride. So again, not having to build that kind of payload will lower the cost. And then the really unique portion, which I'm very excited about, is the fact that we'll hopefully move over to a human-tended payload. We'll always have a Virgin payload specialist, but that's not always going to be the case. In the future, we're hoping that a university can put their own PI in that seat and have a payload that they can interact with. And that's not something that any other platform offers. And I think that's the big, unique identifier. Jeff?
Is there going to be any opportunity to fly research payloads while you're still in the flight test program, or are you going to wait until commercial service begins?
Yes, there's going to be opportunities. So commercial service, with spaceflight participants, we have to have a very high level of confidence and high level of safety. For payloads, since we're not flying participants, we can put in a few payloads when we're not officially commercial ops. If you're defining commercial ops as, when we actually start flying people for hire. Yeah.
Charles Clare, Space.com. So I know that you didn't talk, you don't want to talk dates, but I mean, like, are you hoping for this year, perhaps? I mean, like,
Soon. I've been instructed to say soon and when we're ready. George Whitesides, our CEO, has really emphasized that we'll fly participants when we're confident and we're ready, and we believe in the safety of our vehicle, and that's not something we're trying to rush.
and just a few more brief questions. You mentioned collision experiments, which university is performing that, and also, I mean, how much can researchers expect to get done in 3 or 4 minutes?
Yeah, so the collision industrialist is Josh Caldwell at a University of Central Florida. I think he's flown that experiment before, so we're looking forward to flying it on Spaceship. You can gain a decent amount of time in 3 to 4 minutes of data in 3 to 4 minutes of microgravity. If you look at a lot of the payloads that have been going on parabolic flights, those are 20 seconds. And then you also have to deal with the G-jitter that you'll see in a lot of your data if your experiment's too big. So the fact that it's very high quality microgravity and not interrupted, it's not 20-second intervals, there's a lot of payloads that can use that, and a lot of the payloads have graduated from parabolic flight, and I hope to see the payloads that are on Spaceship graduate to on orbit, and it's almost like a stepping stone to bigger, better, maybe more expensive things. Mark, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, I think maybe just one more question.
Has Virgin been working with startups?
Yeah, so some of the payloads that have been proposed to fly on Spaceship aren't only universities, they're startup companies that want to test a technology before the price of paying for a launch to orbit. So we've had startups come up to us and want to fly and test their technologies at a lower price.
But at the same time, like, to develop the technologies that are enabling your spaceships to fly.
So we've done everything in-house. So we're pretty much, for Virgin Orbit and Virgin Galactic, we're mostly vertically integrated. I think in the future, as we look to expand what Spaceship can do, in terms of maybe add sensors on the outside, or provide access to the space environment, external access to space environment, we could look to having partners. Right now, just until we get to our commercial operations, we're focused on getting everything done in-house and continuing with the program. Yep.
Thank you.